Yo, 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 it's your girl and boy CT. I'm Cindy Barnes.
And I'm Travis Barnes.
And we are the founders of the Overcomers Podcast.
The Overcomers Podcast is designed to help you overcome adversity and live your dreams. Every week we will be sharing stories of people who found their strength in their struggle. The Overcomers Podcast is sponsored by Journey 333, and that's a lot of threes, so let me tell you what it is. It's fitness, coaching, and nutrition. It is a place where we help you to look better, live better, and feel better, and it is mind, body, spirit. Today, we're going to help you get your mind right with our special guest.
Well, good morning, Overcomer Nation. I am Cindy Barnes.
And I'm Travis Barnes.
And we are the founders of the Overcomers Podcast.
The Overcomers Podcast is sponsored by Journey 333. That's a place of mind, body, spirit, fitness, coaching, and nutrition where we help you to look better, live better, and feel better. Today, we have one of our story highlights, one of the ones that was found in 52 Amazing Journeys. This is Amy Balash. Amy Balash is a mother of four. She's a running coach. She's a seventh grade special ed teacher. She is just an amazing, inspirational part of our Journey community. We love her so much. There are just certain members in the community that have become like icons, and Amy has become that icon of inspiration to so many other members for her physical transformation, for all the miles that she puts in running. And we're just super excited to have her here today. So Amy, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, wow, there's just so much. I could have gone on for a lot longer about you. You know, we've had so many fun workouts together. You know, we got 7 years of history of you at Journey. You know, it's just been so fun. And over the years, you know, you've really transformed a lot as far as just the way that you've become a more and more important part of the community. You've helped out our members with running. You're now a running coach at your high school, right? Is it at your high school?
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about your story. So when you were younger, were you running? That was part of your history, right? As far as athletics.
Yeah. So I ran my very first race when I was 8 years old. And I was kind of hooked right from the get-go. Now I couldn't obviously get more competitive until I got a little bit older, but I started running for the school. If I went to Horseheads High School, nearby where we live, and I ran indoor track, outdoor track, cross country, all 4 years, well, of high school and 2 years in middle school. And then I continued on into college. I ran all 4 years for Moravian College, which is a Division III school in Pennsylvania.
Wow. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And so then, you know, we met 7 years ago when you were deciding that you'd kind of lost that, how shall we say, running level of fitness? Is that, you know, kind of where you were at, or? You know?
Yeah, I've always run. The only breaks I've really taken from running in my life were through my 3 pregnancies. I had some health issues that I wasn't allowed to run during those. So coming back from each pregnancy was obviously a little bit harder for me, you know, taking 9 months off. So coming back from that was hard. I always had the motivation, like I'm signing up for this marathon. I'm signing up for this race. I'm signing up for this race. I always had the motivation. But being a mom, you know, you get busy and sometimes my discipline would lack. And I had a couple surgeries in that time frame after having kids. And it was just like every single time, like that was one of those little setbacks. It put me back a little farther. I gain a little weight from being inactive. And then it all adds up and it makes it difficult to really, you know, get serious. I had some plantar fascia issues. I tore one of my plantar fascia when I was racing undertrained, really. So at that point I was like, I need to make some changes in my life. And, you know, I met some people from Journey, and they gave me a month membership, and that's where it started.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk about that for a second, because that's really what happens to so many people is that there's setbacks, you know, a couple of surgeries, you know, having kids, falling out of your routine, and then you tore your plantar fascia. So like, that's big, you know. And what do you think it was in your mindset? Do you find yourself to be an intrinsically motivated person, and like who or what motivates you to where you don't just hang it up, you know, because many people do, just like, I'm not about that fitness thing no more, you know, whatever. Those days are gone, you know?
Yeah. And there was moments in my life where I was like, you know what, it's okay if I give up this running thing. It's okay if I've been doing it so long. I've achieved a lot. Like I had achieved a lot back then. but I always had goals still that I wanted to accomplish. There were still big bucket list items that I wanted to check off. And I was getting in my own way really at that point in my life. So I was just like, you gotta, let's see what else we can do that's going to make a change. And when I first joined Journey, I did give up running for a little bit because of changing my diet. I didn't want to change too much in my in my life at one point. And once I started adding running back in, I was like, whoa, here we go. And then it became really fun again. Because that was a big problem, is when you're not seeing the successes, or, this is what I used to be, but I'm no longer this. So much of my identity had been built on my running, and it was really hard for me to see that piece kind of not be successful anymore. And it was like down on myself, that type of, a lot of that attitude where I was just like, oh, I'm not good at this anymore. Who am I without running? I've done it forever. So like really when I could get that piece back and saw the success coming from the weight loss and the strength, I think the strength was the biggest thing that really helped me. And that really, my motivation from there just like took off, where it's just like, I couldn't get enough of it again. Yeah. I like brought that love back.
Let's talk about who you used to be. What was your favorite running event? Like as far as you were competitive in college and all that, like what was your main event?
I was always distance. Like in high school, the farthest we were allowed to run was the 3,000, which is just under 2 miles. And that was my favorite event. And as I moved into college, I had an amazing college coach. He just really understood me, I guess. I had an eating disorder. My junior year of high school, I developed that. And that really kind of, put limitations on myself for having the energy and the health to run. But he worked with me through college to, kind of, I wouldn't say overcome it, because it's obviously something that you deal with your entire life when you have one of those. But he really kind of put it at bay and put what's more important to you, not eating or not running, because if you don't eat, you're not running. Yeah. And he pushed me into that. So I was able to move up actually in distance to the 5,000, 5Ks and 10Ks, which were my wheelhouse. I loved, the farther I went, the happier I was. So that was really, if I could run a 10,000 every weekend, I would have, but obviously it's, rough on your body. So I wasn't able to, but I did. My senior year, I just had one goal. I wanted to break 19 minutes in a 5K, and I wanted to break 40 minutes in a 10K. And my last 5K and my last 10K were back-to-back days. And the first day was the 10K, and my coach was just like, hey, here you go. And, let's see what you can do today. And I ran a 39:01, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm never coming back tomorrow and breaking my 19 minutes. And sure enough, next day I ran an 18:48, and I was probably in high school or college. That was my biggest, whoa, I hit these 2 goals on my way out the door, 10,000, 5,000. I'm going to I was I'm going to take the world on, and then you
awesome.
graduate and change.
And that's what I wanted to talk about, because, as you were talking earlier, you were I still had some things on my bucket list. You were actually reminding me of Rocky. I still got some stuff in the basement, some things, right?
Yeah.
And so let me compare those times. All right. So here you are, and for the 10K, you break 40 minutes, you do 39:01, and then you 18:48 in the 5K. And so then later on in life, you get involved in Journey, and because you still got some stuff in the basement, you got some things, you're going to get your fitness back, even with all the obstacles of kids and injuries and surgeries. What are your times today that you can tell us about, some of those times that you can highlight and kind of compare? Can I ask how old you are?
I am 44.
Okay. So at 44 compared to being a college senior. Okay. Yep. College senior, you're what, 22?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So twice the age that you were before. All right. So tell us about our times today.
Well, obviously, when you're in college, it's your job. That's your job. It's full-time running, So I could put in a lot more hours with training than I could as now. But 5K and 10K, road and track, track is faster because the surface is different. But my road 5K PR and cross country PRs were always 20 to 21 minutes. which I never thought after I graduated I'd ever get close to that again. And I think I was 39. I ran a 2026 5K, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I do have a little speed in these legs still. I ran a 42-minute 5K actually down in Sayre at the Guthrie Gallup.
42-minute 10K.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. 42-minute 10K. At the Guthrie Gallup down in Sayre. I think it was right before COVID, or the last one they had before COVID. So 2019. I ran a half marathon in college. I ran a 1:37. My PR is now currently a 1:31:43. So, I mean, I took 6 minutes off at 20 years older than I was when I did it.
Come on.
I ran my first marathon in 1999, which was right after I graduated from college, more like 6 months, but I ran a 4-hour and 20-minute marathon, and I was like, I am never doing a marathon again. I waited 10 years and I ran a 4-hour marathon, and that was 2010. So joined Journey, and the rest was history for me. I ended up with a PR of 3:18:01 right now. So I'm running over an hour faster than I was when I was young and had time to train. So that's been, that was one of my bucket lists, was the Boston Marathon. And that had been from 2010 until I joined Journey, and I think it was 2016. That had been a battle with myself all those years, and that, so definitely have gotten a lot faster after joining.
Yeah, that's just amazing. I mean, Overcomer Nation, listen up. I mean, you often wonder, can I have those things that I had in my youth? Can I reclaim that level of fitness, that level of vitality? And this is evidence. Yes, you can. What else is on that bucket list that you're going to be checking off?
New York City Marathon in the fall.
Okay.
It's been on my bucket list for a very long time. It's actually I was supposed to run it in 2011, got injured. Was supposed to run it in 2012. Hurricane Sandy canceled it. I was supposed to run it in 2013, got injured, and I paid for it all 3 times. So I've paid over $1,000 to run this marathon, and I've never run. I finally got in with my 1:31 half, was a New York City half marathon, and it gave me a qualifying time, so I didn't have to enter the lottery. And that got me into the 2020 New York City Marathon, and we all know what 2020 ended up with. So I'm supposed to run it. They let me, we got to pick which year we wanted to run it. I picked 2022 because I figured it was safer than 2021 for hopefully not getting canceled. But both times I'm supposed to run it, it's been canceled. And the only times in the history of the marathon it's been canceled. So hopefully 2022 is my year to get that one off my bucket list.
Well, good luck to you. I hope that we're beyond all this, all the different things that can cancel major events like that.
Yeah. I mean, and I have one other bucket list is I'd love to run a marathon in all 50 states. I have 9 states down. Obviously being a mother comes first. So the traveling is a little more difficult, but I plan them when I can. I signed up for one in Ohio to get state number 10, which is April 24th. So.
Yeah. And how many marathons have you run in your life?
I think 17.
17 marathons. I'm sure that some of our listeners are getting inspired by all this running, just running accomplishments, and maybe they used to run, or maybe they've thought of, I'd like to do a 5K, see if I can do that. What advice would you give to people that are thinking that maybe running will be part of their exercise regimen?
Start now. Start now is always my advice, because I always can say the regrets I have in life were that I didn't start them sooner. Once I start something and you realize what it does for you, you're like, man, if I had just started that a little bit earlier, and start slowly. A lot of times, new runners, they'll start off and it's you're really motivated when you first begin something, and, starting too fast or too much too soon can definitely, hurt your body. Stick with it. That's, work with my athletes. A lot of my athletes start new. So it's just building them up, and, and you're a runner. If you run, you're a runner. And so many people are like, I'm not a runner. Like, look at you, you're a runner. And I'm like, do you run? Yes. Then you're a runner. Like, it doesn't matter how fast you go. That's the one thing with running that's amazing, is it's really about you and what you see and improvements in yourself. Like, everybody around you can be running something different, and you could be last place and you ran 5 minutes faster than you did last time. And that's an awesome accomplishment.
Yeah.
So stick with it. That's my big advice with people. I mean, I hired a running coach just because it's so easy. I know what I should do and I know how to do it. But being accountable to somebody also helps a lot with stuff like that,
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Would you recommend a running coach? Because I know that, with us, being in fitness for so long, people are like, it hurts my knee, it hurts my hip, my, feet get, blisters or this or that or whatever it is. It hurts them, but they want to run. So that's why I was like, would you recommend a coach just so that their technique is actually analyzed and they can,
Yeah. And there's a lot, like, we have a wonderful running community around us here in our area. We have like the running stores in Corning. They'll fit you for what shoes best match your feet. Because some of it, running's a pretty cheap sport, but having a good pair of sneakers is good, because obviously, like, if you're in the wrong pair, your feet are going to hurt. You will get blisters. Running coaches are great. There's, I work with I've had a lot of people who will start out and be like, well, what do I do? And I love doing that. Like that. I love getting people into running, people will say, hey, can you help me? Like, how do I start? And I'm like, here you go. And I love writing running plans for people. So, it's so much fun. I know that at Journey, when a bunch of your members were doing the wine glass half marathon, some did the 5K, I got to work with people there, and I just love it. It's just so much fun watching other people find success in something you love also.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The 3 tips that you gave, they transcend running, but I think that they're just really good ones, and I don't want to gloss over those. So you said start now, right? Stop waiting for the perfect time. The time's never going to be perfect. It's not going to be after you lose 5 pounds. It's not going to be whatever, So that was good. And then start slow, right? Don't try to do too much too fast, because that's a recipe for burnout and, wind up quitting. You'll wind up getting injured. And then stick with it. It's consistency. The success is in the routine. I thought that was really good. And then the other one that I saw, I had a vision for when you said, you're a runner, do you run? You're a runner. I was picturing somebody with a t-shirt, they just went for their first run around the block, and they can own that identity now. They can say, I'm a runner, right? I mean, whatever it was, do you run? You're a runner, That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'd like, if we could, to talk a little bit about the adversity, because nutrition and fitness just go hand in hand. And one major adversity that you had that would have held you back from being the runner that you were in college and the runner that you are today is that eating disorder. And there's probably a lot of people out there listening that either know somebody that has an eating disorder, or are experiencing one themselves, or have had to overcome one themselves. And, you shared a little bit about that with us. You shared that, your coach helped to motivate you. What do you want more? Do you want to not eat, or do you want to run? And that's good. That's good. What other, what can you tell us about it? And what can you tell us about overcoming that adversity? How you've kind of used tools or strategies or things to overcome that?
It's a lot of work. When I was in high school, I was not, I'm not naturally built slender or thin, very muscular, naturally muscular. But when I was in high school, I had an influential person in my life tell me that my butt was too big to run. And I was just like, okay. I was 16 years old. It was a big moment in my life where I'm like, well, what can I do about that? Because I love running and I want to be faster. And then that's kind of how I led into it. And then I started seeing success, because we all know, when you first start losing weight and all of that, you're going to get faster and faster. but then I wasn't feeding my body enough. And now I look back at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, like if this was my child or if this was like one of my athletes, so many red flags that I would have sent. And I mean, you know, a lot of eating disorders stem from other mental health issues, you know, anxiety, depression, all of that. That's all stuff I've battled in my life. But just like I was obsessed. I counted every calorie that entered my body. I knew like every nutritional fact. I mean, I would sit in my classes in high school and be food journaling for like, this is what I'm going to eat this week. And this is how little I can eat. And this is how many calories I will burn, you know, and that was all just based on what I had read. Like, I didn't know how many calories I was really burning, but like, you know, and I hit points where my iron was low and I could hardly function with low iron. That was health. I was just having some other health issues like that from not eating enough food. I mean,
let's say that go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I was going to say, let's say that I'm a parent listening to this podcast, which I am. But a parent of a teenager that I'm concerned may have an eating disorder. You mentioned red flags. What are some of those red flags that you would share? I mean, maybe you just described a couple, but you know, what do you think are some of the red flags that anyone should be aware of?
I mean, I look for it in my athletes just because I was an athlete who went through it. Obsession with food, hiding food, like pushing food around. I hid my body like in baggy clothes. Like I did whatever I could because I didn't want other people to know how obsessed I was with it. That was, you know, like, because I knew it in my head, I knew it wasn't okay. So I tried to hide it. Talking about food a lot, you know, I've had an athlete who just would sit in with me and just talk. And I was like, oh my gosh, she is me. Like, she's me. Like, oh my gosh, you know, just that type of thing. Watching for like dramatic weight loss. I mean, I was diagnosed with anorexia with bulimic tendencies, and exercise was my purge, is what my official diagnosis was. And so just watching that, making sure fueling their body for enough amount of exercise that they're doing is big, you know. Hair loss, I lost hair, that type of thing. I'm like, my hair was like frail.
Yeah. And if you did discover, I mean, of course, you'd probably involve a professional.
Yeah.
But if you did discover that you had an athlete that had an eating disorder, based on your own personal experience, if you were the one that was going to provide the help, you know, how would you talk to him or how would you coach him through it?
I use my real life experience. I'm very open about that I had that, and it's something that I battled. I mean, I would say now it's probably more on the, you know, you continue to battle it. So you can be, as someone who's gone through it, I'm honest with my athletes, trying to prevent it, trying to keep my own children from having that same, you know, feelings about their body that I did growing up, like just very conscious about. I mean, it's something I am conscious about with working with middle school and high school students. So talking about it, like talking about like, what do we need to do? What do we need to, like, you need to fuel your body. You need to fuel your body. If you're feeling like that you can't, like, what else is going on? Because there's usually something else. There's like, you know, anxiety, depression, control. Like that was a big thing for me. Control, I can control that. And it tends to be now, if I feel out of control, that's what I go back to, is like, what can I control? I can control food. I can control what I eat. I can control what I put in my body. So like talking to the kids about where they can get help, or, you know, strong is beautiful, man. Like you don't have to be skinny. Like I don't, you know, like it's not about being skinny. You want to be strong, like healthy. Like you have so much potential in this world. Like don't waste it on this.
Yeah, really good.
So I want to ask you, when you came to Journey and you knew you had a weight loss goal, or you knew wanted to lose some weight to be able to run faster and get healthier, that kind of stuff. And, you know, we sat down and we're like, well, we'd like you to food journal so we can look at your stuff. And, you know, every week we're going to get you on the scale, those kind of things. How was that? for you with knowing in your past that you had an eating disorder and you're like, oh, okay, I have to food journal and I'm gonna.
I had to be very careful. I mean, it is triggering, I want to say, is a good word for that. Like, and I was good. I could food journal like nobody's business. Like, I was a pro at it. But I also and I followed the Journey diet and the Journey recommendations to a T. Like, if I go something, I'm going all in on it. And that's just how my attitude is with everything I do in life. And I really had to teeter that fine line. My husband would say I probably crossed it a couple times, where he was like, just have a piece of cake. It's okay. That type of thing. I'm like, no, so I really had to watch that, but I also had to watch that I'm not projecting it on my daughter, who is, or my sons, but who are also at that age where, they're watching, they know what we do,
Right.
they know what we eat. So it was like, I really had to keep myself, I think my children are really what ended the big pieces of my eating disorder for me, is because I don't want them to go through the same things I've gone through in that sense. So I really it was a fine line, but I had to balance it just so that I knew that I wasn't projecting on anybody else and that I was staying healthy for them.
Yeah. What was your total weight loss at, from coming to Journey and then,
just under 25 pounds.
Just under 25 pounds, which, by the way, how tall are you?
4'10".
It looks like 50 pounds on somebody that's, several inches taller.
Yeah.
I mean,
I look back at pictures now and I'm like, wow, I didn't see that then, but holy cow.
Yeah.
I remember too, when you had gone back to school in the fall, you told me about one of your students and he's like, you are so little. And you're like, I've always been little. And he's like, no, little this.
Little.
Little this way.
Yeah. I had my job, really is I was a self-contained teacher. So I had kids on repeat, they would stay in my class for a couple of years, and you walked in those first, and I'm like, oh, they really noticed. And I coached middle school track, and I walked in and this one girl was like, oh my gosh, Balash, you are so tiny. She's sitting behind me. And I mean, this was almost a year into my journey at Journey Fitness. And I turned around and I was like, well, and she's like, well, you're tiny, but you're still kind of big, but muscle big. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I've worked out alongside you, and Amy, you're a tough one to keep up with, and
she's a beast.
You haven't just lost weight. You have a great level of fitness, a great level of strength. Clearly, you're giving your body the proper nutrition and proper doses of exercise. What would you tell people about, because you're there, you're consistent, and, you're either running or you're at Journey, and now you're a DECA enthusiast, which, by the way, guys, DECA is a Spartan event, and Amy does it so well. She's gone all in on that too. What would you tell people about the benefits that you're experiencing? Because I bet you there's a lot of people that would like to feel in their 40s as good as they did in their 20s, So what would you tell people?
Again, just go for it. Start, going to the gym every day is not convenient, but you make time for it. I can sleep till 6, or I can get up at 5 and go to a gym class at 5:15. It's 45 minutes. I can go to bed 45 minutes earlier, get up and do it. I mean, I like to go in the morning. I like to get my workouts done in the morning, because it's your body, your brain's you forget about it by noon. You're like, oh wait, I already worked out today. Yeah. It's such a good feeling. It's such an accomplishment. I got this, and just stay consistent, man. Every time you have to start over, it's harder, so if you keep going, you don't have to start over. And, I've had setbacks where or lack of motivation during going to the gym, where I'm just like, oh man, I don't feel like going. And then, the accountability, get yourself an accountability partner. I mean, we all know the Moores are mine. I working out with them just keeps you going. If you have somebody that you're planning to meet there, it makes it you have to go. You can't let your friends down. that type of thing. That definitely like just, and once you get in there, you're glad you're there. You're glad you're doing it, and it's such a welcoming, like I'm going to assume most gyms are that way. I mean, I think I'm spoiled with how Journey is. Like when you walk in, you feel like you're with family, but I'm assuming that a lot of gyms have a similar atmosphere. I would hope, because that makes it easier as you as a person.
I hope so
Be
too.
able to go in and work out.
I hope so too. But shout out to Brett and Allison Moore, right? Your
Yeah.
workout buddies, our workout buddies. Never underestimate the value of people in your life. Clearly, there was a coach that made a big difference for you as well with that eating disorder. So there's a lot of great. Compare for me, if you will, you to those friends that you have that don't make time to exercise and don't work out. How would they describe your differences? What would they say about you as far as whatever,
A lot of them tell me I'm lucky. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean I'm lucky? Like, it's not luck, it's work. And there's a difference between that. Or they're like, oh, I just wish I could look like you. And I'm like, well, we all have our own looks. Like everybody's different. It's hard to say. Like,
do they comment on your energy? Because I've always found you to be.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, right.
Like, do you ever sit still? Do you ever stop? Do you ever you are on the go all the time? And I was like, right. Yeah, I have to.
I would say that's like a concept that people don't get about exercising. They say, well, I don't have the energy to do all that, Amy. I don't have the energy to get up in the morning like you do and work out before school. But then they don't understand where your energy comes from, right? Because if take time to overcome and put that energy into that thing, you get back a big return in energy to where people are like, how do you get so much enery? Well, I guess
they're like, aren't you exhausted everything you did? And you're like, I'll run on my lunch sometimes at work. If that's the only time I can fit it in, if I need to get a few miles, then I'll go out on my lunch. And they come back and they're like, aren't you how are you just not done the rest of the day? And I'm like, I feel great. Like I'm ready to tackle the world.
Who doesn't want that? That's
like, and it's mood. It's definitely mood. Like, I mean, it's funny because like my kids at school all know I run, and I'll come in and I'll be like grumpy, and they'll be like, you didn't run today, did you? Oh my God, they know me. It's just, it's easy. I feel happier when I do it. And then it makes the rest of the day, it sets that tone.
I was just saying that to Cindy. We're traveling, so we're in a different location today. If people haven't noticed, we don't have our word art wall behind us, but I was saying, man, my workouts are off and I'm feeling like a little I was moody yesterday, and despite the obstacles that I had, which were mostly IT issues, I would have dealt with them better if I had worked out yesterday. So, I mean, even that, you want a mood boost, you want an energy boost, this is a couple of great reasons besides weight loss and fitness and strength and all that kind of stuff to do it. Let me ask you this final question for you. What do you think it takes to be an overcomer? You've overcome surgeries and eating disorders, and, you've lost, for me, what you lost would have been 10% of my body weight. You've lost 20% of your body weight, right? Imagine that, folks. Do the math on your own weight and say, what would it be if I lost 20%? Because that's what we're talking about with Amy's 25 pounds. What do you think it takes for people to be an overcomer, to overcome their adversities?
Support, support from your family, support from your community, support from people you work closely with, but persistence. Like nobody can do it for you. Like you have to do it. You have to make that decision yourself to say, yeah, I'm going to do this. And yeah, there is, life gets in the way. So you got to be persistent and keep going. You're going to have failures. You're going to have setbacks. That's part of life. And just to keep saying, keeping that goal and target or whatever you're focused on and target, and just keep moving forward with that. That's really the big thing with overcoming something. I mean, we have two choices. We overcome it or we succumb to it. And we don't,
that's good. That's good. We overcome or we succumb to it, and we're going to overcome it, so that's really good. And get support. That's a great piece of advice, lean in. You were talking about the Moors as your accountability buddies, but whatever you're going through in life, there are people that want to help. Maybe you don't have a great family, but I guarantee you that there's professionals around you that want to help. I guarantee you that there's communities that you could join, like Journey, where people will wrap their arms around you and they would want to help. So there's always a place for support. no matter what you're going through, just take the time to reach out and lean in. I think that's really, really good advice. Amy, I know a lot of people are inspired by all your running stories. So if they want to follow you or reach out to you or whatever, what's the best way to do that?
Instagram, I'm Amy Runs 810 on Instagram. That's kind of where I document a lot of my running.
Very good.
I use that as I don't know,
Yeah, that's cool.
way to put it out there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Amy, thank you for sharing your inspiration and sharing so generously with our audience today and being so vulnerable. You were an awesome guest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, Overcomer Nation. Make sure if you haven't already, give us a 5-star rating. Make sure that you share this and subscribe so you can see all of our future content.
That's right. And if you'd like to be a guest on a future show, go to overcomers-podcast.com. If you're interested in our franchise opportunities with Journey 333, then go to www.journeyfitness333.com. And finally, if you like what you heard today and you feel like you're somebody that needs a bit more coaching, go to travisbarnes.com.